Well, thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi, Dafydd, ac i chi gyd am y croeso yma heddi. Diolch i chi hefyd am y gwahoddiad i siarad yma ar achlysur sy'n mor bwysig. Mae bob amser yn bleser i mi ddychwelyd i'r Llyfrgell Genedlaethol. Ac efallai i rai o'ch chi weld yn ddiweddar nes i raglen ar S4C ac mi roedd y Llyfrgell Genedlaethol yn un o'n 3 lle hoff i bryd hynny. Ac mae heddiw wrth gwrs yn ddiwrnod hynod o arbennig iawn i ni y rhai sydd yn ymddiddori y mywyd a gwaith David Lloyd George. I'm really delighted to be back in Aberystwyth on this glorious day to celebrate the launch of a new volume of work on Lloyd George. Now, nearly 70 years after his death, and with an existing bibliography that is long enough in itself to be the subject of a book by Graham, you might reasonably ask, does the world need another book about Lloyd George? I myself, of course, am guilty of adding to their number, my justification being that, of course, my book is about the women in his life, not the man himself. But in this case, the answer is an unequivocal yes. Graham can truly claim to be among the most expert, if not the most expert, in the field. His knowledge of the archive here in the National Library and of the life, times and work of David Lloyd George is simply unrivaled. And those of us who have eagerly looked up his articles over the years will treasure this book as the summation of his work. Now, I've been asked to talk a little bit about Lloyd George, but before I do, I'm struck, as ever, by the unique atmosphere in the National Library. My relationship with this iconic building started really before I can remember. My parents met here at Aberystwyth at university, and we spent many happy family holidays here, never failing to come up to the top of the hill to see an exhibition or just to peep into the reading rooms. Later, as a postgraduate student, Aberystwyth was the obvious choice for me, not least because of the National Library and its vast resources. In those days, and I do feel like a dinosaur when I say these things, there were no laptops, no mobile phones, no email points, and research was a silent process of ordering books from the stacks on little slips of paper and recording their content in pencil. I'm sure I'm not the only one here who can remember those days. Life moves on, of course, and I found to my astonishment when I returned in 2005 to embark on researching my book, the technology has changed the experience of the researcher beyond all recognition. Library catalogues are now online. Indeed, more and more of the letters I travel specially from Yorkshire to see are now digitally reproduced on the website. And that has increased the accessibility of the archives here in Aberystwyth beyond measure. Now, that particular visit of mine in 2005 stands out in my memory too for my sheer naivety as a newbug in the field of Lloyd George research. I approached the desk and asked if I could see the Lloyd George archive. Patiently, and I expect not for the first time, Graham explained to me that the collection was some 2,000 boxes strong, and which one did I want to see first? Well, I saw most of them over the years, and I soon learned that if I was having trouble tracking down a specific document, it was usually because Graham was working on it, and that another insightful article would follow. And I came back to Aber more often than I strictly needed to during the course of my research, because there's simply nowhere else in the world more conducive to me to good work than here in the National Library. Ac un peth sydd ddim wedi newid o gwbl, wrth gwrs, yw gwybodaeth eang a chymorth parod y staff. A mi hoffwn ni gymryd y cyfle yma i ddiolch yn gyhoeddus iddyn nhw gyd am yr holl help ges i dros y blynydde. Diolch yn fawr iawn. And the addition of the National Screen and Sound Archive is another immeasurable benefit for researchers. After a hard day's slog through the Documents Archive, it was wonderful to be able to see the Lloyd George family home movies and to view the shaky black and white images of the Lloyd Georges on official occasions. It brought life to the characters of my book and renewed my fascination daily with their story. And what a story it is. It was my good fortune to stumble upon a cast of characters that are charismatic, complicated, admirable, and full of human foibles. What more could a biographer have asked for? The idea for the book came from a memoir by Anne Parry, and she was Lloyd George's Welsh secretary from 1931 onwards. And in the memoir, she recalls saying to Lloyd George's mistress, "You and I shared the pain and the privilege of smoothing the path of a famous man. The pain and the privilege of fraint ar boen," as she put it. And as I was to discover, they were far from being the only ones. Lloyd George created a network of women around him to support, comfort, and encourage him. In adulthood, Lloyd George had, in effect, not one wife, but two. He marries Margaret Owen in 1888, and a few days before his silver wedding anniversary, he takes a mistress, a young single girl called Frances Stevenson, who became an indivisible part of his support network. Frances shares Lloyd George's heart with Margaret for 30 years before finally becoming Mrs. Lloyd George herself. And the story of Margaret and Frances involves love and hate, brutal honesty and deception, honour and betrayal. Margaret always has first place in Lloyd George's life, but Frances holds first place in his heart. Margaret was his loyal public consort, but Frances was his private comfort, a woman who lived her life in the shadows and endured maybe 2, maybe more abortions to keep their relationship secret. The betrayal is complete when Lloyd George discovers that Frances had an affair with another man, and that a daughter, Jennifer, whom he had raised as his own, may not in fact be his child. Now, such a story would create headlines today. In the years between the wars, several reputations and a political career would have been ruined for good if it had come out.